Darkness clenched her teeth in frustration, yet what amazed her most was her lack of refusal in that instant. Actually, her heart felt somewhat excited, hoping Milcar might do something more with her. However, to her dismay, Milcar merely wanted her to change outfits to accompany him somewhere. "Milcar, you scoundrel! How dare you enter a lady's chamber without requesting permission, you fool!" Darkness muttered quietly, as she raised her head slightly to observe Milcar's back. A faint blush crossed her face as she swallowed some saliva. "I mean, how dare you come into my room without asking and not even give me a kiss, you trash? Are you truly a man?" Darkness started mumbling nonsense with a flushed face, seemingly having various risky scenarios running through her thoughts. Milcar, used to this behavior, simply walked with a calm smile. "Auction, we're heading to an auction, Darkness. The truth is I felt somewhat lonely, so I wish to bring Aqua with me. But she appears to have something more important to handle. Eris cannot come, and you're the only one free," Milcar explained peacefully. Darkness's face contorted slightly, realizing she was chosen as a third option. Contrary to feeling disappointed, a slight warm sensation passed through Darkness's heart. "So I'm the third choice in your heart, Milcar, you little scoundrel. What about Megumint?" Darkness surprisingly didn't act perversely, and asked with genuine curiosity. "Ah, that's my walking nuclear weapon. She's important for cert missions. I need her well rested and ready to drop some explosions occasionally." Milcar smiled. Darkness didn't comprehend, but still took a few steps forward with a slight smile on her face. Chapter 35, Union. There was a brief silence, in which Darkness simply walked behind Milcar. They both soon arrived at the Adventurers Guild. At this hour of the morning, almost midday, the guild was empty. Not a single soul was present. After all, adventurers arrive for lunch, and from that hour it begins filling up. Walking through the corridors of the Adventurers Guild Tavern, Milcar set his gaze on a receptionist sleeping. Her head was resting on a table. This receptionist is Luna. She seemed to be sleeping during working hours. Before Milcar could do anything, a receptionist approached him to speak. "You must be Mr. Milcar. Lady Luna told me you would arrive. Please follow me. I have the 50 million heiress that the guild can lend you." Milcar squinted at that amount of money. However, as his father used to say, never look a gift horse in the mouth. Milcar simply remained silent, as he received a total of 50 million heiress in 100,000 notes. A few moments later, Milcar received information about where the auction would be held. He also learned how to enter from that receptionist. Although a bit puzzled because Luna could not attend to him, Milcar simply shook his head. He began heading towards the auction site. Milcar, what do you plan to do with all that money?" Darkness, who was eating meat from a skewer while they walked through the streets of Axel, asked curiously. Milcar simply smiled mysteriously. Darkness squinted her eyes, took a few steps closer to Milcar. She tried to snatch 100,000 heiress bill from Milcar's pockets. Darkness's hand moved cautiously. She swallowed, her body was tense. Her breathing had almost stopped completely. Clash. However, in just a moment, Milcar grabbed Darkness's hand. With his other hand, he lightly tapped Darkness in the stomach. "Trying to steal from me? I'm afraid that's not possible, Lady Darkness. Maybe you need a punishment, nothing inappropriate of course." Milcar smiled and said with some pride. Darkness, whose stomach had been hit, felt a slight electrifying sensation run through her body. The pain invaded every one of her cells. She bent over while clutching her stomach. She tried to suppress the urge to vomit. Darkness, who prided herself on her strong physique, this time really felt an indescribable pain. At the same time, her unusual nature acted, making the sensation feel oddly satisfying to her. Darkness murmured something, breathing heavily while crouching, about to fall to the ground. Her mind was overwhelmed, while her body trembled. If someone looked under Darkness's armor, they could see she was quite affected. Her state was noticeably altered by the experience. Milcar observed this with wide eyes. He never imagined that a gentle strike from him could cause this seemingly indestructible woman to end up this way. Milcar quickly crouched to check if Darkness was okay. "Hey, I'm sorry for that. I didn't think you would be so vulnerable," Milcar said in a calm voice while placing one of his hands on Darkness's shoulder. Some chi began to flow into his hand to try to strengthen Darkness's body. However, Darkness quickly raised her head. Her two green eyes seemed to shine with a characteristic green color. Her expression completely flushed and breathing hot, her expression similar to that of a woman living in bliss. This made Milcar swallow slightly. In Milcar's position, and with Darkness's sudden movement, their faces were just a few centimeters apart. Some saliva ran from the corners of Darkness's lips. One of her hands rose to touch her cheek while letting out a slight sound. You did it, Milcar, you really did it." Darkness's eyes widened. She seemed to have reached a conclusion. Her flushed expression turned even redder. "Milcar." Darkness swallowed. She was about to ask Milcar to strike her again, this time harder. "Ah, darn it, I forgot you were that kind of woman." Milcar raised his voice slightly before grabbing Darkness's hand. He forced her to stand up and walked in the direction of the auction. There were no major problems after that. Darkness stopped talking and simply let Milcar hold her hand to lead her down a path. There were some questions that Milcar answered to a guard in front of a building. Then he entered a building like a coliseum, not very large, capable of holding 100 people. Milcar received the number 40 and looked for a place to sit with Darkness. "Ah, you must be the good Milcar. Alderp spoke to me about you last night." A slightly sharp voice was heard near Milcar. Milcar, who was about to close his eyes, made a slight annoyed expression. He quickly turned his head to see who dared to interfere with his thoughts. Red eyes, brown hair, a red dress with some lace, and a beautiful face. The clothes she wore made her figure show its splendor. However, the most important thing were the two large attributes of this girl. Hi there, well, I'm Union. My teacher Wiz asked me to come to this auction." Union lightly touched her forehead while introducing herself. For some reason, she felt that Milcar was staring at her intently. She swallowed before trying to breathe properly. "Is that so, Lady Union? Why do I feel like I've seen you somewhere? Maybe I'm getting old, or maybe we've met in another life." Milcar murmured something under his breath before smiling. This world seemed to have changed too much. Milcar no longer worried about the changes. "Well, actually, Mr. Alderp told me that you, Sir Milcar, can fight hand to hand against powerful beings. Against the most powerful beings in the kingdom," Union said with a slightly ecstatic voice. "Not really, the news spreads fast here. I guess you still don't know that I have something that measures 8 inches. Or has that not become public knowledge yet? I mean, darn it. The governor is someone significant, and I'm not talking about his belly, you understand, right?" Milcar shook his head. For some reason, he felt a slight sense of alertness being near Union. Milcar didn't understand why, so he simply moved a little closer to Darkness. There was a brief silence. Union narrows her eyes, attempting to comprehend Milcar's words. However, after a moment, she simply sighs in resignation before smiling happily. Her white teeth and eyes look particularly charming. "Well, changing the topic, you're probably just being mysterious. How about visiting my teacher?" There was a slight hint of madness in Union's voice. She still smiled and seemed like a cute girl. However, Milcar was certain there was something more hidden within her, perhaps a second personality. Milcar didn't know, nor was he interested in wasting much time at the moment. He still had Eris and Aqua waiting for him at home, so he simply shook his head. Milcar moved a little closer to Darkness, until his body bumped into Darkness's body. Darkness was daydreaming when she felt something bumping into her body. The sensation was neither annoying nor pleasant, more neutral. She was about to push away the person who dared to touch her, when she opened her eyes and realized this person was Milcar. Darkness observed Milcar, and then the woman who seemed to be talking to Milcar. She frowned before feeling that something might be happening in front of her. As an adult woman, Darkness was clearly aware of the noises from Aqua and Milcar last night. At first, she blushed and started mumbling nonsense. But then she simply left the castle to train and calm her mind. Chapter 36, Auction starts. Now, Darkness is completely certain that Aqua and Milcar are a couple. So this beautiful girl with impressive features is trying to talk to Milcar in such an intrusive way. What would Aqua think of her if she continued watching as if nothing happened? Darkness's heart fills with righteous indignation. She thinks she can't let Aqua's boyfriend be intimidated like this. Darkness opens her arms to hug Milcar tightly, her green eyes watching that well-endowed woman with malice, and she grits her teeth slightly. How dare this woman with such attributes try to flirt with my man? How dare she flirt with Aqua's man? Darkness grits her teeth as she thinks maliciously. Union's eyes shine with slight understanding. A slightly smug smile crosses her face as she thinks of a possibility. She can't help but laugh slightly while looking at Darkness with displeasure. Is Mr. Milcar a man who submits to a woman? Well, that's new, Mr. Milcar. I must say I'm surprised. I suppose Governor Alderp was right. Union covers her mouth to let out a slight chuckle as she looks disapprovingly at Milcar. A slight trace of anger passes over Milcar's face as he grits his teeth. How dare this woman insinuate that? Before Milcar can say anything, Darkness seems to get upset. She hugs Milcar even tighter, making her chest press against Milcar's back. How dare you even suggest that? Mr. Milcar is a despicable man, a man who chases after women, you know. This morning, he entered my room without asking for my permission, and. Darkness began her rant with indignation, her face turning redder as she spoke, and she started to stutter while letting out occasional sounds. Several men and women sitting near Milcar and Union watched this scene with various feelings, from amusement to disgust or simply repulsion. Union simply decides to leave Milcar alone for the moment because the auction is about to begin. The Colosseum seemed to be covered with a large magical blanket, covering the entire Colosseum and bringing darkness to the people inside. An artificial light appeared like a sun in the center of the Colosseum. A middle-aged man in a quite elegant suit made his appearance at the center of the Colosseum. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies, young people and young ladies, nobles and noble ladies. Milcar, who was being hugged by Darkness, heard the voice of this man, a slight frown passing through his mind as he seems to curse in his mind. Darn, the progressives have arrived in this world. I don't want to listen to pronouns for hours. Milcar curses in his mind with some amusement. After all, a country he knew well in his native life, Spain, had been completely ruined by the progressives. Most of these guys' higher-ups are sly, corrupt. They use an equality ideology to cover up their problematic actions. Milcar laments in his mind as he slightly shakes his head. Darkness, Union left some time ago. Isn't it time to stop hugging me? Hey, why do I feel something damp getting on my back, Darkness? Milcar, who is being hugged by Darkness, says with a slight surprise. However, upon hearing Milcar's words, Darkness simply shakes her head with rectitude. What are you saying? You need to be hugged by me, understand? Or else people wouldn't know your mind, darn. Union might try to talk to you again. Darkness blushes slightly as she speaks with rectitude in her words. She hugs Milcar even tighter, as if she were afraid Milcar would escape from her arms. There was a slight frown that passed over Milcar's face, but he simply shrugged. After all, being hugged by Darkness isn't so bad. After the presenter tortured the language several times using all kinds of pronouns, the auction began. The first item up for auction is the Arcanite shield made by the artisan Moskov. It is a shield that can provide. Milcar didn't have time to listen to the man talking nonsense about the shield. He simply closed his eyes, hoping the presenter would utter some word that catches his attention. Some time later. Twin weapons of green iron, these weapons are a kind of double-edged swords. Quite beautiful for their design in bright green iron, a perfect handle. They were made by the blacksmith Grom. The auction starts with a minimum bid of 10 million eris. After hearing the presenter's voice, Milcar slightly opens his eyes. The presenter holds two short swords with the edge completely made of bright green color. They look like two giant needles due to the slim finish and the little body in the edge of the blades. The handles have a guard that seems to protect the wrists. In general, it is a quite beautiful sword. 20 million. Milcar wasted no time and shouts a price. There was a slight silence in the Colosseum. Several men look at Milcar with slightly widened eyes, many of them smiling and others pleasantly surprised. Indeed, weapons like these twin swords are highly appreciated in Axel. But they are not worth 20 million eris. If one had the contacts, then one could pay a famous blacksmith to make a pair of twin swords of green iron. For as little as 15 million eris. Immediately several rich men and some nobles present pledged to continue with the auction. The presenter was pleasantly surprised to hear Milcar's words. A polite smile appeared on his face as he seemed ready to give the swords to Milcar. However, 30 million eris. A sharp and quite soft shout, a girl raised her hand from a quite distant place from Milcar. This woman is none other than Union. Milcar, who was resting happily while leaning his body against darkness, is surprised. He opens his eyes and looks at Union with two slightly red eyes. Union from her own place looks at Milcar and playfully smiles. She moves her hands to make a gesture of cordial greeting to Milcar, before covering her mouth with the palm of her hand to hide her smug laughter. This woman. Milcar curses angrily in his mind, gritting his teeth and observing Union's playful look with some resentment. The presenter was amazed. A sword that could be made for 15 million eris is now being quoted at 30 million. How much would he earn from this auction? The presenter's eyes seem to have turned into gold coin symbols. As he looks affectionately at Milcar and Union, several nobles and rich men begin to murmur. Many of them seem to have noticed Union's expression and cannot help but draw conclusions in their minds. As a result, a story where Milcar cheated on Union by being with darkness seems to spread from mouth to mouth. Throughout the Colosseum, 40 million eris. Milcar shouts proudly. After all, with his strength, earning tens of millions of eris is an easy task. Now he just needs some weapons to use some of his skills. The most important thing is time. There was another brief silence, in which several nobles and rich men remained silent. Their faces couldn't be more solemn as they watch Milcar and Union cautiously. Chapter 37, Being Attacked. The presenter couldn't be more delighted and grateful. He was about to announce Milcar's number when Union raised her hand and stood up. 60 million eris. Union shouts with an increasingly mocking smile on her face. Several people swallow hard at this moment. Union smiles widely and blows a flirtatious kiss gesture to Milcar. Milcar clenches his fists in anger. Although he could defeat everyone here and steal the twin swords, that would prevent him from resting peacefully in the future, because he would be hunted by the Belzerg kingdom. Milcar looks at Union with red eyes before swallowing hard. He effortlessly frees himself from darkness's embrace, grabs her surprised right hand. He simply murmurs a few words. "Let's go, we have nothing more to do here." Milcar closes his eyes as he takes darkness's hand and walks straight towards the exit. In the view of several noble and wealthy men, this is a complete humiliation for Milcar. They can't help but laugh lightly and applaud. Their eyes focused on Union as if saying, "Good job, miss." Union, who is initially happy, watches Milcar for a moment, before quickly heading to the presenter, paying the sum of 60 million eris. She swiftly runs in the direction where Milcar left. A few minutes later, Milcar was eating some frog meat at a random restaurant, with darkness by his side, also eating fried frog meat. "Hey, Milcar, if you want, I can ask a blacksmith to make some twin swords for you." Darkness speaks as she chokes on food at the same time. She doesn't seem to have table manners or care about her appearance. After all, she has been enduring hunger for dozens of hours. Milcar observes this with a raised eyebrow. He can't help but smile slightly before grabbing a piece of napkin. He wipes one of Darkness's oil-stained cheeks. "It's a good idea," Milcar says before attempting to eat the fried frog meat on his plate. At this moment, Milcar doesn't have his guard up due to his confidence. He doesn't realize when someone places two swords with green blade on the table near his plate. There was a slight noise as the swords hit the wooden table. A somewhat tired but still cheerful voice can be heard. "Haha, if you want them, then I can give you these twin swords." The voice sounds cheerful and slightly expectant. Milcar doesn't need to lift his head to know who owns this voice. He simply continues eating the frog meat on his plate without pause. Union, who took a few minutes to find Milcar, squints her eyes. She seems a little regretful. After all, she had humiliated Milcar in front of several nobles and wealthy men. Union feels some guilt in her heart and is about to apologize, when Darkness stands up and bangs the table with force with one of her hands. "How dare you come here after what you've done?" Darkness's voice carries hatred and anger. She really dislikes this girl, who only has large attributes. Darkness is about to draw her sword and confront Union. But a hand lightly touching her head makes her calm down. Milcar had stood up unnoticed. He simply placed a hand on Darkness's head to calm her before looking into Union's slightly surprised eyes. "It's not necessary, please leave." Milcar's calm voice carries no emotions. He simply says that with a slight smile. Darkness, narrowing her eyes, sits back down while looking at Union with slightly red eyes. Milcar also sits back down, ready to continue eating the frog meat on his plate. "I've ruined it, right?" Union sighs inwardly with regret. She seems to have ruined the opportunity to establish contact with a powerful person. It seems that Wiz will punish her for this failure. However, Union still opens her mouth. "Master Wiz is interested in talking to you." She says that Mr. Alderp never speaks well of a person. "And you are the first person Mr. Alderp really considers powerful," Union says with some seriousness in her voice. She feels guilty and seems ready to beg Milcar for forgiveness. "No need for so many words. When the time comes, I will visit Wiz. For now, I need to gain more power." Milcar responds indifferently as he goes back to eating the frog meat. Union sighs wearily. She grabs the two green swords with pain in her heart. After all, she hasn't completed the mission that Wiz assigned her: to bring Milcar to visit Wiz. She also spent 60 million Eris from Alderp's treasury to buy twin swords that are only worth 15 million. Union can't help but feel nervous thinking about the punishment that awaits her when she arrives at Alderp's mansion. The day passes normally. Milcar returned to the castle empty-handed, but with a full stomach alongside Darkness. Night soon arrives. Chapter 38, Censored. Chapter 39, New Mission. 2 days later. Now, as Milcar wakes up, the first thing he feels upon opening his eyes is warmth. Both Eris and Aqua are embracing him tightly, one wing to his left, the other to his right. Both goddesses have satisfied expressions on their faces, smiling happily. Just by looking at them, Milcar can tell that both have reached the second level of chi condensation. Luckily for him, Milcar reached the maximum 9th level of chi condensation. Squinting due to the unpleasant odor, Milcar quickly moves. He uses his great speed to clean the entire room. Not before bathing Aqua and Eris in the small pool next to his room. After bathing and cleaning Aqua and Eris, tidying up the room and getting rid of the bad smell, Milcar looks with satisfaction at the room. Eris and Aqua still haven't awakened on the clean, white bed. This can't be helped, after all. Even Milcar seems to have been unconscious for a long period of time. How could Aqua and Eris be more resistant than him? Smiling and giving them both a kiss on the forehead, Milcar quietly leaves the room. Milcar was about to go out to find Luna to take on a mission, to get some good quality blood, when he saw Darkness near his door. Closing the door behind him, Milcar looks at Darkness with a smile on his face. However, Darkness can't help but blush and swallow hard, her eyes seeming cloudy as she slightly averts her gaze. "Hey, Darkness, since you're here, where's Megumin?" Milcar asks curiously, eager to find out something. Upon hearing Milcar's voice, Darkness slightly shudders before rubbing the back of her neck lightly. Megumin is having breakfast. Kazuma too. Hey Milcar, I mean last night you." Darkness fidgets with her hands as she speaks with some stuttering. However, Milcar simply smiles, waiting for Darkness's next words. "What were you doing for these 2 days?" Darkness's voice had a slight sharp tone, as if she didn't know what Milcar had been up to. Instead, she seems genuinely interested in it. Milcar looks at Darkness for a moment before smiling. Obviously, I was marking my territory. Hahaha, darkness. Maybe it sounds inappropriate to you. Although I don't know if you exactly know what those words mean. But I was just doing what a man should do, gain power of course. Now come on, we need to take on a new mission. Milcar says before walking and descending the stairs. Darkness doesn't understand what exactly Milcar means. There was a slight silence. Darkness swallows hard for a moment before simply nodding and following Milcar. But if it isn't my two best machines? Hahaha, forget it, my boy Kazuma with potential and my walking nuclear bomb. It's been a while, anything new you want to tell to your daddy? Milcar smiles as he sees Megumin and Kazuma having breakfast at the dining table. He smiles as he approaches Megumin and Kazuma amiably. Kazuma quickly drops the utensils on the table. His face filled with righteous indignation as a slight feeling of hatred passes through his body. After all, he spent 12 whole hours listening to the sounds of Eris and Aqua. 12 whole hours where he couldn't sleep no matter how hard he tried. Those sounds echoed throughout the castle. These last 2 days, Kazuma couldn't sleep, so out of desperation he went to a brothel in Axel. At this moment, Kazuma with a face full of indignation quickly breathes to calm himself. He tries not to lose his patience. Megumin, on the other hand, continues to eat a piece of special bread bought earlier that morning with small bites. Her head bowed, her immature mind seemingly shocked. She can't help but feel a little strange. By the way, kids, today we are going out on a mission. I need you clean and with a smile on your faces. Milcar said with a smile on his face, seems to be very happy for some reason. He ignores Kazuma and Megumin's attitudes, prepares breakfast for him. He drags the whole group, except Aqua and Eris, out of the castle to take on a new mission. Hey, we're under curfew, have you forgot? Kazuma protests, suddenly speaks with a shrill voice, causing Milcar to nod slightly. But that doesn't seem to bother him. I don't think Alderp would dare to stop us. We'll just take on a mission and complete it. Milcar smiles after speaking, causing a slight commotion from Kazuma and Megumin. But they both reluctantly accept. A few moments later, at the Adventurers Guild. Looking cautiously at the various missions in front of him, Milcar swallows hard with some solemnity. His eyes are almost completely red due to the descriptions of the missions to take. Kill the Lord of the Northern Cave. Annihilate the emerald green dragon that dwells in a mountain to the west. Investigate a newly found tomb. All these high-level missions make Milcar can't help but feel that something is wrong. Luna at the reception, Booth is waiting with a smile for his response. Doubting for a moment, Milcar chooses the safest mission for now, exploring the newly found tomb. Discarding the other sheets of paper with different types of missions written on them, Milcar keeps the paper with the mission. About the tomb. Luna applauds with both hands, smiling slightly as she gives Milcar a cheerful look. Heh, well, Mr. Milcar, it's been a while since someone took that mission. I hope you can complete it. Luna smiles, getting a little closer to Milcar. Mr. Milcar, the 50 million heiress were thanks to me. Shouldn't I get something in return? Suddenly, Luna's voice is slightly flirtatious as she brings her face closer to Milcar's, with sparkling eyes seeming to expect a reward. Milcar smiles. Why does this woman behave like a child who expects a reward after doing something good? However, ignoring his deep thoughts about this, one of his hands rests on Luna's head. He starts to stroke her silky hair. Chapter 40, Battle. Luna lets out a slight sound as her eyes close. Her body trembles for a moment while she releases contained sounds. It wasn't difficult for Milcar to give this kind of gratification, especially if doing so meant he could see Luna blushing. Luna seemed pleased, causing her clothes to shift slightly. She let out soft sounds as she pushed her head against Milcar's hand. After a moment, Luna seemed to have a problem. Milcar had to stop petting her head because Luna let out an audible sound. Everyone in the Adventurers Guild turned to look at her. That, Kazuma murmured quietly. He looks at Milcar and seemed to understand something in his mind. He couldn't help but open his eyes with a bit of envy. Brother Milcar, why you? Kazuma murmured resentfully as he clenched his teeth. After all, he hadn't even had the chance to talk to a beautiful girl with some brains since he came to this world. On the other hand, Darkness watched Milcar with suspicion. Megumin continued eating some fried meat. After talking for a bit, Milcar and his group walked to the giant gates of Axel, which were completely closed. A seal from Governor Alderp that Luna had given him before was enough for Milcar to get the guards to let him and his group out of Axel. Walking through the green valleys, Darkness began to smile slightly. Megumin seemed calmer, and Kazuma was lost in his thoughts. "Hey, Milcar." Darkness, observing the green grass, began to murmur something as she approached Milcar. "Why are you in love with Aqua and Eris?" Darkness asked seriously. There was a slight silence in the group after she uttered those words. At this moment, both Megumin and Kazuma sharpened their ears. Darkness looked at Milcar with a serious face. "Did I say that?" Milcar chuckled. "Well, I mean, why do you care about who I love or not?" Milcar asked with some curiosity. After all, being Darkness, Milcar couldn't help but differentiate between the perverted Darkness and the loving Darkness. Darkness blushed slightly, a thought crossed her mind. She couldn't help but get a little closer to Milcar. "Well," Darkness was about to hug Milcar, but at that moment, Milcar's eyes snapped open. His perception warned him that a powerful enemy was approaching at great speed. The feeling of danger he had felt some days before returned to his heart. Milcar clenched his teeth tightly. Moving his chi within his body, Milcar molded the chi to create a small dome. Around Darkness, Megumin and Kazuma with his mind. Just enough time for Milcar to turn around and face the enemy that brought him that feeling. Turning around to look ahead, Milcar found himself face to face with a young man. He had blue hair and a black and white mask covering the upper half of his face. At this moment, looking at this man, Milcar could already guess his name. Vanir. The magical power emanating from Vanir was like a dangerous ocean that could sweep away anything on Earth. Looking at Vanir was like looking at an ocean of magic. It seemed inexhaustible. The environment around Milcar and Vanir seemed to change. Gravity increased for a kilometer around them, while Vanir smiled vaguely. "Did you kill Sarazdana?" Vanir asked, though his tone was affirmative, as if he didn't expect an answer. Milcar smiled slightly, but said nothing. Milcar has no intention of talking to this man. For Milcar, this man is Vanir and must be eliminated. One of his hands moved swiftly to grab Vanir's neck in a killing move. Clash. However, before Milcar could grab Vanir's neck, Vanir's right hand caught Milcar's hand, generating a clash that produced an audible sound of flesh colliding. As if two powerful forces were colliding, a great shockwave generated. Winds capable of blowing people away spread across the green field. Behind Milcar, Kazuma, Darkness, and Megumin seemed to have regained their senses. Surrounded by a dome formed, thanks to Milcar's chi. They couldn't feel the powerful wind destroying the surroundings like a natural disaster. They simply watched in horror as a shield of almost transparent white chi surrounded them, isolating them from what was happening outside. Vanir's eyes became a bit greedy after seeing Milcar. For a long time, he had been researching some things for the sake of his own power. However, they had all been created just a second ago. Milcar blinked in surprise. A person passed near him and went through him as if he were a hologram without substance. Milcar's mind drifted in a void where only loneliness seemed to exist. The next instant, reality collapsed, everything returned to emptiness, the universe and existence vanished. Milcar squinted even though he had no eyes, only consciousness. He was now a lord of the universe, like reality itself, capable of creating and destroying at will. Yet Milcar remained in a vegetative state, doing nothing, thinking of nothing. Suddenly, Milcar opened his eyes, blessed with a new vision of reality. The chi within his body began to absorb the faint trace of divinity, escaping from the small chest. Milcar looked around. It seemed to be night, and several hours had passed. Everyone nearby stared at him with shocked red eyes. Alderp stepped back in fear. Wiz felt that death could reach her at any instant, and Union sensed an invisible sword hanging over her. Kazuma, Darkness and Megumin felt the same dreadful presence. It was just a few seconds. Why? Alderp whispered with a trembling voice. His face turned pale, his heart raced, his body threatened to collapse. Milcar's powerful chi, fusing with divinity, went out of control. In just 2 seconds, the sky above Axel City and miles around was consumed by clouds as dark as tar. Daylight vanished, replaced by deep night, and purple lightning struck near the mountains, scaring every beast in the woods. Milcar's eyes glowed faintly with golden light, and his aura alone forced ordinary people to kneel and cry, confessing their sins aloud. Sensing everything around him, Milcar vanished in a blink. Floating high above Axel City, he rose several miles as if standing on air. He gazed upon the chaos he had unknowingly caused. "I'm about to enter the Foundation establishment," Milcar murmured in surprise, his eyes widening with excitement that nearly turned into laughter. Looking down, he saw fires and light spells glowing like fireflies. Milcar extended his chi, forming a protective dome over the entire city, and focused his mind. His body relaxed, his chi overflowed, boiling and multiplying with intensity. He closed his eyes in full concentration. A massive purple lightning bolt struck Milcar, illuminating Axel City for an instant. People below stared in terror as the lightning turned night into day for a brief moment. They saw a faint white glow covering the city like a transparent dome, allowing them to see through it. That dome was Milcar's chi, shielding Axel from harm. Fear filled every heart before another lightning bolt descended. But this bolt vanished on contact with the dome, as if erased from existence. For the people, it was like watching the Demon King's power dissolve into nothing. Their fear turned to awe, then relief. Milcar remained calm as the storm raged stronger. Lightning became fiercer, acid rain began to fall, but the dome deflected it harmlessly. Minutes passed before a faint cracking sound echoed. The classic fried potato is great, but have you tried fried cassava? It's 5 times better. Chapter 47, Preparations. It felt as if the heavens shattered, and in the center of the black clouds, a bright tunnel opened. Daylight pierced through, returning hope to Axel's people. Milcar opened his eyes. He had reached the first level of the Foundation establishment. Yet he frowned, realizing that his chi had changed. Previously, his chi was like thick liquid diluted in water. Now it was far purer, more concentrated, far more potent. He felt his power had multiplied beyond imagination. With a single thought, a fireball could appear before him. Smiling at this revelation, Milcar disappeared. He reappeared in the dining room, where Alderp and the others still sat. Surprisingly, none of them had moved, as if waiting for him to return. No one spoke for a moment. Milcar quietly walked to his seat, sat down, and began eating the cold food as if nothing had happened. Heh, he chuckled between bites, licking his lips. Suddenly, he slapped his forehead as if remembering something. Everyone in the room stared at him. "Damn it, I forgot I used some chi to restrict your movements, heh. I hope you kids don't blame me for that," Milcar said before releasing the chi seal. Kazuma, Darkness, and Megumin immediately regained motion. Darkness rose from her chair, Megumin aimed her staff at Alderp, and Kazuma hid behind Milcar. "What's going on?" Milcar wondered to himself. Megumin pointed at Alderp, shouting, "You're a traitor who murdered the first prince." She prepared to cast her explosion spell, but a thin layer of chi covered her mouth, silencing her. "Heh, my little nuclear bomb, no need to be angry. After all, what Alderp said is probably true," Milcar said with a calm smile. Darkness froze, looking at him in disbelief. "What the heck, Milcar? You can't betray the royal family," she cried out, her tone filled with desperation. Milcar smiled. "But what are you talking about? It's not betrayal since I never belonged to Belzerg in the first place. I'm American, I owe no loyalty to any king, not like the Spanish or British, ha. He laughed heartily while Darkness frowned, unable to understand his words. Before Alderp could grin or reach for a handshake, a sword pierced through his chest. "Thank you, Lord Alderp, you don't need to remain alive anymore. It's over. Now I possess power beyond even Vanir's. I've already taken what I wanted from you," Milcar said. He had vanished and reappeared before Alderp in a blink, his sword already embedded in Aldrup's heart. No one saw it, no one could react. Wiz watched in shock, her eyes wide open. Who is this man? How can he be so powerful? The heart of Wiz raced intensely despite lacking one. Wiz stepped back as though preparing to flee, her body trembling and mind in chaos. She wanted to move, yet none of her muscles responded. In just an instant, with a furious glare from Aldrup, this overweight man perished. Milcar simply kicked Aldrup's corpse aside before looking at everyone present in the chamber. From this moment forward, I govern this small city, do you agree? Milcar's ethereal and purely magical voice echoed in the minds of each person present. They all nodded, indicating their understanding. Darkness, who had previously been ready to enter combat alongside Megumin, said nothing. Their loyalty to the Belzerg kingdom was silenced. After issuing some commands, Milcar returned to his castle with his companions. They all arrived just in time to prepare dinner. It was perfect timing because Aqua and Eris had just awakened. Although in Foundation establishment, Milcar doesn't need food or water to survive, he still does out of habit. The food is simply delicious. At a large table where several dishes were served with abundant provisions, Milcar's entire group gathered to dine. Milcar smiled as he took the leadership position, the largest seat at the table. Although Kazuma, Megumin, and Darkness didn't speak during this time, Milcar could understand their thoughts. He comprehended what each of them was thinking. Milcar simply raised a wine glass, his eyes looking at everyone at the table with a smile. From this moment forward, from today onward, we will govern this small city. We shall transform it into a powerful nation. The dinner was lively, with many questions that Milcar answered honestly. He promised to find methods to make his group members stronger. After dinner, Milcar, Aqua, and Eris returned to a chamber to cultivate normally. A day passed by. In the middle of the night, Milcar got up. He left the two unconscious girls in bed and departed his chamber. He was ready to take a bath in the large pool inside a room within the castle. During this time, some theories crossed Milcar's mind. But one still prevailed deep in his thoughts. That was to use his chi to strengthen the bodies of his group members. After all, his chi has evolved and is no longer normal chi. It is now pure chi, almost comparable to the divine power of the gods. Walking calmly, Milcar reached a large door. Opening it, his eyes were dazzled by a slight mist coming from a cloud of steam. Now, at this moment, someone seems to be showering in this large pool. It featured ancient decoration made of stone. The water here is abundant and hot, causing the vapor to rise into the air. After several hours, Darkness ended up unconscious. As usual, Milcar bathed Darkness, dressed her in clean clothes. He laid her on her own bed in her chamber. Before Milcar could return to his room to embrace his two beautiful goddesses, a noise was heard. It came from the main entrance of the castle. Someone was knocking forcefully. Slightly annoyed, Milcar squinted his eyes. At this early hour when the sun was barely rising, who could be bothering him? With a motion of Milcar's hand, the main door opened. It revealed a beautiful woman with an extremely voluptuous figure. Lady Wiz. Milcar smiled upon seeing Wiz. After eliminating Aldrup Alexei Barnes, Milcar left Wiz in charge of the city Axel temporarily. He ordered the execution of Walter, Aldrup's son, to avoid any problems. He gave orders to establish a militia with adventurers. Milcar's main reason for doing all this is because he wants to use a chi seed. He intends to give every inhabitant of Axel City the ability to cultivate chi. Using his new chi, Milcar can use some of the power of creation. He can condense some chi and make this chi change a person's DNA, thus giving them the ability to cultivate chi to anyone. Wiz looks slightly terrified at this moment. She quickly steps forward before opening her mouth hastily. Lord Milcar, you have to go out and fight. A great wave of demons is approaching the city Axel. Wiz quickly kneels as she shouts, her voice full of fear and some hope. Milcar squints his eyes upon hearing this news. Why? Milcar planned to stay in his castle for a few days. Let Wiz manage the entire city and simply start increasing his cultivation level. But now, what has happened? Before Wiz could say another word, Milcar grabs Wiz. He lifts her to carry her over one of his shoulders. It was as if he were carrying a sack of potatoes. In the next moment, Milcar uses his speed to move like a lightning bolt. He heads to one of the tallest towers in the city Axel. At the top of the city's tallest tower, Axel Milcar lands. The trail of white light he leaves behind as he flies is still visible. His presence can make ordinary people feel like kneeling. On top of the tower are already Union and Luna. Both women were appointed by Milcar himself to be assistants to Wiz in managing the city. Clearly, Luna already knows everything that has happened with Alderp. She knows Milcar's true power after Wiz went to fetch her days before. Although all of this was hard to accept, Luna was already prepared. She was prepared to see Milcar doing incredible things. She can only swallow saliva and look at Milcar as if she is looking at a god. Looking towards the north, Milcar takes a few steps forward. Several miles away, Milcar's good vision can see a bunch of small dots moving. They should be moving at great speed, running like a stampede. Hundreds of demons of all kinds, rushing to completely destroy the city Axel. Using his chi to enhance his vision, Milcar can almost see those demons clearly. It is as if they were 10 meters away from him. At the forefront of the demon stampede, a knight in black armor rides. He rides a terrifying horse, galloping like the leader. This knight has no head, and only a helmet with 2 bright lights as eyes. The helmet is being held by one of his arms. This knight is easily recognized by Milcar. He is Duke. He is one of the generals of the Demon King. Sent by Vanir. Milcar thinks, however, this thought is quickly suppressed. Milcar believes that Vanir would not do something so foolish. Thanks to his ability using chi, Milcar can feel the chi of the demons. They are running to the city Axel. None of them is even remotely powerful. Duke at the forefront can simply be eliminated in an instant by Milcar. If Vanir had sent Duke to raise the city Axel, then that would not make sense. Why would Vanir be sending Duke and more demons simply to death? Lord! Before Milcar can think of any reason, Wiz takes a step forward. She slightly lowers her head as if she had made a mistake. Wiz's attributes move back and forth with each of her movements. But none of this makes Milcar stop looking her in the eyes. Hehe, well, the truths. Wiz begins to elongate her words as she lightly touches her cheek. She tries to relieve the tension in the air. Mr. Alderp had some business with the Demon King, although I don't exactly know what kind. I do know that Mr. Alderp was valued by the Demon King. Wiz says in a slightly inaudible tone. Milcar observes her for a moment, then there's some silence. Is that so? After a moment, Milcar simply speaks casually. Wiz's agitated heart returns to normal. She thought Milcar would punish her for hiding that kind of information. However, Milcar seems relaxed. Wiz can't help but sigh in relief. She feels that Milcar doesn't seem to be angry. However, Milcar's next words make Wiz startle slightly. So, how do you want me to punish you for not informing me of this problem earlier? Milcar asks with a smile. Union and Luna shudder. They quickly move away. They hide behind a corner while watching Wiz with curious eyes. It is almost as if they were expecting Milcar to punish Wiz. Except Union, she seems to be shaking. But still, if one could read her mind, she is trying to show some courage. She wants to ask Milcar not to punish Wiz. Wiz's heart skips a beat, her body starts trembling. Her eyes become slightly watery, and she can't help but swallow saliva. Before Wiz can say anything, Milcar simply vanishes from his own place. He appears behind Wiz and simply smiles. The punishment will be decided later. For now, I have to discover something. After saying that, Milcar advances at great speed, flying through the skies. He leaves a trail of white light behind him. In the tower, Wiz still kneels in the same place. Her eyes are slightly red. She doesn't seem to fully comprehend Milcar's words. The feeling that Milcar provokes in people with his simple presence is that of a superior being. Obviously, Wiz, who is much weaker than Vanir, simply cannot resist the urge to kneel. This happens when Milcar concentrates his gaze on her. Before Wiz could say anything, she felt 2 soft and warm hands embrace her from behind. Master, don't worry, I'll ask Mr. Milcar to be compassionate. HMPH, if something goes wrong then I'll just share the punishment with you. Union, who had been watching, suddenly felt empathy for her master. She hugged Wiz from behind while saying some kind words. Wiz's heart filled with warmth at the embrace of this girl. Wiz's eyes become slightly bright. In her heart she feels that if Union was a man, then she could have feelings for her. Duke swung his enormous sword to generate a strong wind. He was rallying the demons behind him. His horse galloped and made a thunderous noise. Various demons of all kinds behind Duke roared and shouted. They were eager to devour the human flesh they craved. In this chaos, wherever they passed, the ground is completely devastated. Fields full of green grass and vegetation were trampled flat and lifeless. Duke once again recalled the words of the Demon King. This was before he came with an army of demons to besiege this novice town. Not a single person alive, everything must be destroyed. The majesty of the demons cannot be tarnished. The Demon King seemed furious at that moment, his magic surging into the environment like a raging sea. Giant waves of magic struck everything around. Duke nearly went flying due to the powerful winds generated. Duke, somewhat concerned about the reason that drove the Demon King, couldn't help but feel something was wrong. Why would the Demon King send an army of demons to besiege a novice town? Duke wondered in his mind as a slight feeling of fear filled his body. Before Duke could think of anything else, in the distance, a light ascended into the sky. It came from the city that looked like a small place due to the distance. It is a small light, almost invisible, but it grew larger as the seconds passed. Duke felt his entire body start to tremble slightly. His mind seemed to stop working for a moment. A cold feeling struck every inch of his being. Before Duke could do anything, a crackling sound could be heard. It was like 1,000 lightning bolts striking the earth simultaneously. The white light began to shine more intensely. A strange wave of energy surrounded Duke and the demon army. Before Duke could give any orders, the white light shone intensely. It was as if a crack had opened in the heart of every demon. Their bodies cracked, their bones turned into small fragments. Their blood boiled, and their lives ended in just a second. Duke's horse stopped abruptly, the ground around it cracked. Some dust rose due to its sudden movement. Duke looked ahead, the 2 red lights in his helmet moved. They shone intensely. In just an instant, the bright white light that seemed several miles away now shone intensely near him. It was only a few meters away. The sound of the various demons roaring, screaming, and waiting to massacre the city of Axel ceased. Only silence reigned behind Duke. Duke didn't need to think if something had happened behind him. Simply using his magic to check the existence of the demons behind him, he could tell. All those demons were now just lifeless bodies that had fallen to the ground one over the other. Duke swallowed hard. The 2 bright lights in his helmet shone more intensely as the seconds passed. His mind analyzing what to do against the bright white light that was gradually losing its brightness. Before Duke could do anything, the white light suddenly disappeared. A rather simple-looking man appeared where the white light had been. Milcar smiled, his eyes calmly observing Duke. A slight smile appeared on his face. "Mr. Duke, it's good that you have come. I need you to tell me everything you know about the Demon King." Milcar spoke honestly and calmly, hiding nothing. He simply observed Duke, analyzing this general of the Demon King from head to toe. A feeling of fear that Duke had never felt before began to invade his entire soul. Standing in front of Milcar, Duke began to tremble. His warhorse seemed agitated and started moving erratically. It was as if it was trying to escape from this place. What does this mean? Duke's mind began working rapidly, trying to find some way to escape from this place. Unconsciously, Duke was beginning to collapse, the weakness in his body increasing. Just watching Milcar take a couple of steps closer made Duke start to scream in fear. "Stay away." Duke's desperate and anxious voice could be heard with great terror. However, Milcar simply extended his hand to touch the head of Duke's armor. For Duke, it was like finding enlightenment. In just a second, his body was completely flooded by a powerful energy that made him relax. Duke stopped trembling, his body regained its majestic appearance. Duke's horse calmed down in just a moment. After all, this was the pure chi that Milcar used. It was enhanced with the divinity he had previously absorbed. His chi had some attributes of creation. In short, Milcar could simply mold his chi to slightly modify the laws of this world. Using his chi to calm Duke, Milcar smiled. He opened his mouth again to ask for information about the Demon King. A moment later, Milcar moved his chi again. He eliminated Duke in just a blink. The information that Milcar received from Duke about the Demon King was quite enlightening for Milcar. For a long time, Milcar had been imagining possible theories about the Demon King. These ranged from this guy being a woman to even thinking the Demon King was stronger than Vanir himself. However, to Milcar's surprise, the Demon King is completely different from what Milcar thought. The Demon King was something like the curse of this world. A well-known story always repeated itself. A hero would come to fight the Demon King. This hero would manage to defeat the Demon King after a long battle. That hero would become the next Demon King. As to why this happened, why a hero would transform into the new Demon King, Milcar didn't know the reason. He didn't want to find out why this happened. Even so, the contemporary Demon King, according to Duke, seemed to be a middle-aged man. He had a rather classic military, bearing typical of the Japanese during the Hirohito era. Probably a Japanese supremacist who committed atrocities before coming to this world as a reincarnate. He managed to defeat the Demon King of that time and became the new Demon King. As to why this story is not widely known in Axel, as well as in the Belzerg kingdom. Perhaps it is because it simply happened 500 years ago, according to Duke. With this new information received, Milcar gained no information about the power of the Demon King. However, Milcar still feels some confidence in his own power in the establishment of the foundation. Now, with a new target in sight, Milcar simply wants to wait for a while. He plans to wait before going to eliminate the Demon King. After all, the Demon King lives in a secluded area in the heart of the Demon City. The entire city is guarded under a protective barrier. This barrier is kept in place by the Demon King's general. Although Milcar can use his chi to break this barrier according to himself, he still needs to wait. He must wait for some time before going to eliminate the Demon King, just as a precaution. Nodding to himself, Milcar watches the blue sky for a moment. Then he flies back to Axel City. The danger to Axel City ended as soon as it started. Milcar began to give orders to Wiz and Union. Milcar has to reform the entire Axel City from head to toe. He must spread the knowledge about cultivation to strengthen the city. After all, he has eliminated Alderp, the former governor of Axel, alongside Walter. Although this news is not known, it will not be long until the kingdom of Belzerg realizes what happened. A few hours later, sitting in a chair in front of a table in an office, Milcar analyzes multiple projects. He approves multiple projects presented by Luna. The project to recruit adventurers as soldiers, the project to establish a militia armed with soldiers, the project to become independent from the Belzerg kingdom. All were quickly approved, and Milcar simply smiles at Luna's good work. HMPH. Milcar mutters something difficult to understand as he leans his whole back against the backrest of the chair. Milcar allowed himself a few moments of rest. He enjoyed the tranquility that reigned in his office. Sunlight filtered softly through the windows, illuminating the papers and projects Luna had meticulously organized. Despite the calm, Milcar knew that the peace in Axel is temporary. The real challenge still lay ahead. As he pondered his next steps, the door to his office opened. Luna entered, with her characteristic energy and efficiency. Closing the door behind her, Luna takes quick steps and approaches Milcar. Her figure moved gracefully with each step she took. "Sir, the leaders of the most prominent adventuring teams will not receive this new news with a smile." Luna fixes the glasses on her face with a finger. She mumbles somewhat wearily after seeing the sheets of paper with the approved projects on the table. Luna, with some confusion written on her face, takes a few steps forward. She bends down, bringing her face close to Milcar's. Milcar places his hand on Luna's head, starting to pat it with slow, rhythmic movements. HMPH. Not at all surprised by this move by Milcar, Luna mumbles something hard to understand. Her eyes become slightly bright, while a charming smile appears on her face. Luna lightly pushes her head against Milcar's hand, just like an extremely docile puppy. No need to say anything, I'll talk to those leaders soon. Milcar smiles while murmuring with a smile. This makes Luna feel a huge relief all over her body. She relaxes and simply closes her eyes and smiles, slightly letting out a charming giggle. Every touch from Milcar makes Luna feel a pleasant tingle running through her head. It numbs her brain and passes through her body, filling her with light ecstasy. Luna's red lips pucker as she starts to blush. Again, she starts to push her head against Milcar's hand, this time with more force. Her two red cheeks are hot, and her body starts to sweat slightly. However, in just a moment, the door of the office where Milcar was standing was kicked hard. It made a loud noise. KHHH. Luna opens her eyes, chokes on her own saliva. Like a frightened cat, she moves several steps away from Milcar as she starts coughing desperately. I have come to regain freedom in the village, Axel. A loud and majestic voice can be heard coming from the entrance of the office. Milcar, who is waiting for this to happen, because he felt the chi of this person approaching, simply smiles. Blue eyes, yellow hair, a muscular body, and two girls behind him. All this while the teenager wears a majestic armor. Ah, it's you, Sir Hero, Kaiwuya if I'm not mistaken, hehe. Well, I must say, it's not a pleasure to meet you. Milcar smiles, the yellow-haired teenager takes a step forward. An arrogant smile appears on his face. Have you heard of me? Kaiwuya speaks arrogantly, though his arrogant voice doesn't match his body at all. Though his armor and bearing are top-notch, Milcar can clearly see the missing right arm on Kaiwuya. He can also see the scar around his neck. Milcar squints with some curiosity at the state of this hero, who came from the same world as him. Kaiwuya, as a prominent figure of the Adventurers Guild, can be considered a kind of idol. He is an idol to many adventurers. He has achieved great feats that have saved Axel City from getting into a lot of trouble. This happened over the course of a few years. For Milcar, Kaiwuya can be a key piece. The axis that can connect him with the hearts and feelings of each of the adventurers of Axel City. It's bold of you to kick down that door to demand the freedom of Axel City, Kaiwuya. Milcar smiles slightly. He doesn't know what news has been spread throughout Axel City. This is because he left all that work in the hands of Wiz. Kaiwuya seems somewhat confused before taking another step forward. His only arm gripping Graham, and his eyes shining with slight determination. I need to speak with your boss, where is Alderp? Kaiwuya demands, his majestic voice echoing through the office. The girls behind him, Fio and Cremia, smile for a moment. Their hearts seem agitated by Kaiwuya's words. They are on the verge of saying something. But due to the presence of Milcar, who is said to be Alderp's right-hand man, they dare not speak. A rumor has spread throughout Axel City. That rumor is Governor Alderp Alexei Barnes has retired to live a peaceful life away from politics. Not only that, but Walter, his son, has joined the army against the Demon King. With all this, one name circulates from mouth to mouth in Axel City. The name Milcar can be heard in every gossip, on every corner, and in every lunchtime conversation. Milcar, Alderp's right-hand man, will be in charge of Axel City. He will be in charge until Walter returns from the army. Of course, these news were spread by Wiz, and they are all lies. They are meant to buy some time. Kaiwuya, a renowned adventurer from Axel City who knows Alderp from some chance encounters, is upset. A rumor has spread that a new law could be passed in Axel City. This law states that all adventurers who are part of the Adventurers Guild will become part of the militia. They will be under the new army of Axel City. Naturally, news like this enraged many adventurers. They choose this profession because they are not tied to any kingdom or noble. After all, this is a trick used by nobles multiple times. Using adventurers to form an army and sending them to die on the battlefield. In the streets of Axel, rumors about recruiting adventurers as part of a small army spread like wildfire. They would be sent to the front lines in the war against the demons. No one wants to die, which is precisely why Kaiuya, after his return to Axel City, dared to come. He came to Milcar's office to say what he thinks about this supposed new law. In front of Milcar, Kaiuya, despite feeling a strange sensation, still puffs out his chest. He feels that he is facing an unparalleled man. Still he looks at Milcar as if he were looking at an enemy. So, Mr. Kaiuya, do you think adventurers can continue living the life they have been living? Milcar asks before smiling. He takes a few steps forward, looking Kaiuya in the eyes. Mr. Kaiuya, you should already know, at the front in the war, the kingdom of Belzerg is losing. The kingdom which we are so proud of is losing. There are no more heroes ready to give their lives for humanity. I think you understand, right? Milcar smiles, leaving some hidden meanings under his words. Kaiuya narrows his eyes with repressed anger and annoyance. Milcar has hit the spot. After all, despite smiling gallantly and acting like a hero who will fight for justice, Kaiuya has changed. He acts in the name of the goddess Aqua. But Kaiuya has already lost the determination he had when he arrived in this world. After his fight against that strange red kobold, Kaiuya has felt that his dream has crumbled. His dream of bringing peace to this world has shattered. His body trembles when he sees an enemy. His left hand can barely hold the sword without starting to shake. An unprecedented fear fills his heart whenever he has to think about taking on a new mission. Kaiuya breathes in some cold air as he lowers his head a bit. He is a tired man who, deep in his heart, awaits death. Hope is like a city full of streets and sewers. Hope is like a city at war with its periods of drought and abundance. Hope is like a city at war, full of cynical drunks. Hope is the heart, hope is the man, hope is a city, the world is hope. Milcar murmurs softly, however, his voice resonates in Kaiuya's mind like a mantra. Standing in front of Kaiuya, Milcar raises his right hand. He touches the protective armor on Kaiuya's chest. The blonde adolescent narrows his eyes with some bewilderment. He almost raises his head to ask what Milcar was doing. Before that, he feels an unparalleled warmth coming from Milcar's hand. The sensation is calming and soothing. It is comparable to being lifted by loving motherly arms after a winter night. It fills every part of Kaiuya's body with hope, warmth, and a longing for the future. What? Damn. What the hell is that? In the office, several curses uttered by beautiful girls can be heard. All observing with wide eyes Kaiuya's body. At this moment, Kaiuya's body glows slightly, with closed eyes. Almost kneeling on one knee, Kaiuya emanates a sense of pure sanctity. His mind, his body, his armor, everything has changed in Kaiuya. The part where Kaiuya's severed arm used to be begins to show a slight change. Like watching a salamander regenerate in a high-speed video, a new arm starts to grow. It grows from Kaiuya's stump. After the women present shouted in amazement, there was a slight moment of silence. They just watched a new arm grow from Kaiuya's stump. Kaiuya's armor, torn in all places if one looks closely, begins to change and mutate. The color gradually turning into a light tone, regenerating. The steel it's made of gradually improves in purity and acquires new properties. Kaiuya's newly grown arm is covered by the regenerating armor. From a worn blue armor emerges a snow-white armor. With spikes on the shoulders, a breastplate that seems indestructible, along with decorations like hieroglyphs on every part of the armor. Kaiuya looks more majestic, his golden hair turning white and growing slightly. After a minute, Kaiuya finishes feeling the warm sensation. His mind has processed a variety of information in just a minute. His body has changed, and his thinking took a drastic turn. It is almost as if his memories had changed. Kaiuya opens his eyes slightly, looking at Milcar in front of him. Kaiuya's eyes are filled with a slight white glow, and he bows deeply. HMPH. Kaiuya murmurs some difficult-to-understand words, as his head presses against the ground. Several tears escape his eyes, his heart moved. His soul seems to have been bathed in a ton of hope. Kaiuya was about to say something, but he couldn't find the right words to continue speaking. What could he say? Saying thank you will insult the man who gave you such a gift. At this moment, the two girls, Fio and Cremia, behind Kayuya, react. Their minds finish processing everything that has happened. They also bow deeply in gratitude towards Milcar. From now on, you will be in charge of the entire adventurer army. It will be formed in Axel City. Milcar pronounces words easy to understand, and Kayuya nods. I'll give you this. You just have to think about how to infuse some of the hidden power within you. This will give someone else the ability to cultivate chi. Milcar says before 5 white lights flew from his right hand and entered Kayuya's body. In just a moment, Kayuya's mind received enough information to understand about chi cultivation, as well as the correct way to use the 5 lights. Each of the lights represents a skill to cultivate chi. In the Axel City, there are 5 more powerful adventure groups. Milcar needs to subdue them to dominate all the adventurers. Naturally, Milcar doesn't need to say another word for Kayuya to understand what he has to do. Humanity is in danger. We need prompt action to rise above the bodies of those demons. Humanity will rise again to rule the sky and the earth. Milcar shouts fervently, filling everyone's hearts with a longing for war. Humanity must eliminate those demons. Humanity will rise again. We must get rid of those inhuman dogs. Suddenly, Kayuya and the 2 girls behind him stood up to shout with fervor and hope. Milcar nods with satisfaction, before sending 2 lights flying towards the bodies of Fio and Cremia. Some information about cultivation and the ability to cultivate, as well as a bit of pure chi, fills their bodies. This makes them let out an enchanting sound. There was another wave of thanks from Fio and Cremia. Before the group of 3 left to subdue the leaders of the 5 strongest adventure groups in Axel. One less problem. Milcar murmurs with a smile once the door closed after Kayuya left Milcar's office. Although Milcar wants to give all the citizens of the Axel City the ability to cultivate chi, he knows something. According to human thought, what is gained easily is not valued. So, Milcar simply decided to give the ability to cultivate to a few. Gradually, many adventurers will know about immortal cultivation. They will wish they were the ones who could master this power, generating a kind of greed. Then Milcar could reward some faithful adventurers who are loyal to the Axel City. He could reward them with the ability to cultivate chi. This gives a clear message that whoever is loyal to the city Axel can be a superior person. Someone more powerful. For now, Milcar returns to his chair, ready to think about another problem. Although in the original story the Belzerg kingdom appears to be too powerful, Milcar still chooses to be cautious. He cannot rebel against the Belzerg kingdom for the moment. At least not until he can say that the Belzerg kingdom is completely easy to defeat. What makes Milcar a bit greedy are the lives of the royal family members. The king and the queen and also Iris. If he can eliminate them and steal their souls to obtain divinity, his chi will evolve again. It will reach a new level. But Milcar can't think about this for the moment. At least not until he confirms the true capacity of the Belzerg kingdom in terms of power. Milcar sighs with some tiredness. A smile appears on his face before getting up from the chair. I haven't punished Wiz for not warning me in time about the problem with Duke, right? For now, Luna, you are in charge of this office. I have to punish Wiz. Milcar murmurs with certain mischief, before disappearing from the office as if he had been erased from existence. In the backyard of the former governor of Axel's mansion here, both Wiz and Union are standing. They stand over an extensive garden. The green grass stretches out. Not far away there are floral decorations, along with fruit trees, strategically placed to look beautiful. In this place, Wiz observes the trees with a slight smile. Union, on her right, also observes nature, feeling peace within her heart. It's been a while since this place looked so peaceful. Union murmurs with a slight smile. Wiz nods with satisfaction. Previously, the only reason Wiz served as Alderp's subordinate was because of the Demon King. It was also because of his deal with Alderp. Once Alderp was eliminated by Milcar letting Wiz see the power Milcar possesses, a slight hope was born. It was born in Wiz's heart. Having been under the Demon King's command for so many years, at this moment, Wiz's heart is filled with hope. A hope that threatens to grow over time. Although she doesn't show it on the outside, Wiz is completely convinced. She believes that Milcar could eliminate the Demon King. At this moment, as if he had appeared out of nowhere, a person appears behind Union and Wiz. He appears from one moment to the next. "Good morning, how are you today?" Milcar's sudden voice makes both Wiz and Union let out a sharp scream due to the surprise. They shiver, give a slight jump, and their bodies tremble slightly. "What the hell?" Wiz curses softly, before realizing that the one who appeared out of nowhere is Milcar. Wiz was about to say something, however, Milcar moves forward. He places each of his hands on Wiz and Union's shoulders, almost as if he were hugging them. "I see you have been working very hard. That deserves a small reward, don't you think?" Milcar's somewhat hoarse and annoyed voice can be heard. Both Wiz and Union can feel it. Milcar does not seem to be happy. Suppressing the growing feeling of fear in her heart, Wiz swallows hard. "Reward, well." Wiz begins to stammer. She lowers her head, almost appearing shy. "How about you forget what happened with Duke?" Wiz asks in a pleading voice, hoping that Milcar will forgive her. She hopes he forgives her for hiding information about Duke. A slight sigh, difficult to discern if it is a sigh of disappointment or not, can be heard from Milcar. "How about a snack? I have a treat that might be to your liking, my little Wiz." Milcar murmurs with a teasing tone near Wiz's ear. His voice, though not very audible, can be heard perfectly. Wiz's heart skips a beat. There are many implications in Milcar's words. She cannot understand what exactly Milcar wants to say. Union on the right does not dare to move. Her eyes move to observe Wiz from the corner of her eye. She seems to be scared. Mr. Milcar, are you going to punish me?" Wiz guesses. She hopes that Milcar denies her assumption. However, that cannot reduce the fear in her heart. "Hey, can you read minds? Come on, I'll give you something special." "No one is watching us." Milcar jokes while making his intentions clear through his proximity. There was a moment of silence. Wiz's face turns a complete shade of pink. She can perfectly sense what Milcar is implying. Now, Wiz can fully understand what Milcar meant. Wiz begins to breathe heavily. Her heart beats too fast. Although she has no heart, after all, she has never had any previous experience with men. "Come on, no one is watching us. There's no one around." "It's good for me. It will be good for you." Milcar murmurs almost with a voice full of playfulness near Wiz's ear, breaking the silence. Wiz opened and closed her mouth several times like a fish out of water. Her heart trembled, and her body didn't seem to react for a moment. She started to murmur some words as a feeling of warmth filled her body. From the beginning to the end of all this, Union remained silent and still. Her mind perfectly analyzing everything that happened. To put it in few words, Union felt a little relieved. Relieved that Milcar didn't seem like he was going to punish her teacher. Union's agitated heart gradually calmed down as time went on. The time has come to balance the scales. I will withdraw to train some new skills and to refine 2 powerful weapons for a few days. During this time, it is necessary for the plan to build a nation to progress gradually. Milcar began giving orders, his voice heard by Wiz and Union. Both nodded to Milcar's plans. A moment later, 2 white lights came out of Milcar's body. They entered Union and Wiz's bodies. This is, to put it simply, the ability to cultivate chi. It is necessary to practice cultivation along with magic. It is necessary to be considered an important part of the new city of Axel. After saying this, Milcar disappeared as if he had been erased from existence. Both Wiz and Union stood stunned for a moment. Some thoughts about how to cultivate chi engraved in their minds. They couldn't help but be surprised by all this. Their minds opened to a new perspective of the world around them. Gratitude towards Milcar beginning to blossom in their hearts. Milcar returned to his castle, ready to withdraw to a private room. He was ready to start working on new skills to face the Demon King without needing to eat. However, before Milcar could do anything, Aqua and Eris blocked his path. "Milcar!" 2 sharp and affectionate voices were heard. The 2 little goddesses moved with coquettish and cheerful movements towards Milcar to hug him. "Milcar, HMPH, that girl Eris. Eris told me she was the main woman who occupies your heart. That's a lie, right? Aqua pressed her head against Milcar's chest. She lifted her head slightly to look at Milcar with two big bright eyes. She spoke with a pleading voice. Milcar, you can tell Aqua the truth. When we first bonded, you told me I was the only goddess who truly occupies your heart. You can tell Aqua she's just a concubine, right? Eris rubbed her head against Milcar's chest and asked with a coquettish voice. Each of them asked in an innocent and seemingly cute way. But the implication of their questions was too dangerous for Milcar. If Milcar had to decide, he couldn't do it. A slight nervous smile appeared on Milcar's face. Milcar's two hands moved to embrace the slender waists of both goddesses. He waited for a moment before opening his mouth. Well, that naturally should not be said. As for whom I prefer, the answer lies in your hearts. Milcar gave an ambiguous answer while affectionately hugging the two goddesses. Although each of them asked for a different reason, the answer did not make them angry. On the contrary, both Eris and Aqua strengthened the idea. The idea that they were the main woman in Milcar's heart. Milcar. After an hour in which Milcar spent time with both goddesses, he entered the small private room. It was at the end of the hallway, ready to start training. Entering a state of thought while resting on a comfortable bed in a dark room, theories filled his mind. Theories about the possible use of chi filled Milcar's mind. There is no basis, no techniques, no books, nothing that anyone has written about chi in this world. Everything stems from his desire to cultivate chi and from the goddess Aqua. That's why Milcar can simply create techniques and theories about chi usage. Although all this might be a disadvantage, for Milcar, it's like finding a piece of gold. Finding an unshaped piece of gold in a garbage dump. Gradually, various ideas on how to use chi to change the laws of this world present themselves. They present themselves in his mind. Around Milcar's body, space seems to distort. Some things that are immobile in one place disappear or appear elsewhere. Some things increase in size, others elongate. Many seem to be in a cycle of appearing and disappearing, of changing or simply elongating. In the city of Axel, several days have passed. Several days since Milcar began studying chi and how he could create new techniques. In the city of Axel, everything has progressed at a terrifying speed. People who were previously worried, because new laws were decreed in the city of Axel, now seem expectant. Many adventurers who previously felt terrible because they would be recruited for Axel's militia are now training. They are going on missions to become stronger. The streets are lively and the vendors smile happily. In the Adventurers Guild, all missions have been taken. Even the most dangerous ones have simply disappeared. Probably missions accepted by Kayuya. All this is due to the display of power Mitsurugi Kayuya made just a day ago. Facing a golden dragon several meters in size flying over the city of Axel. This caused all the people to be completely terrified. A person emerged from the darkness. Sword in hand, his body shone with intense light. Kayuya stepped in the air as if he could walk. Or were standing on some invisible platform in the sky. A thrust of his sword unleashed a bright white crescent that split the dragon in two. Soon after, that individual, known as the famous Mitsurugi Kayuya among numerous adventurers, discussed the bravery of Axel City's new governor. He talked about how Milcar might guide Axel City toward greater accomplishments. Most importantly, he mentioned the strength that those devoted to Axel City could acquire, the chi. With their interest piqued, numerous adventurers lifted their weapons, eager to show their patriotism and devotion to Axel City. As various adventurers joined Axel's militia, fresh groups of companions emerged, beginning to work earnestly on assignments. Meanwhile, several miles from Axel City, a royal convoy makes its arrival known with the sound of strong horses' hooves. A royal convoy transporting the princess and multiple knights, along with numerous vacant carriages. Inside the main and most ornate carriage, a lovely girl with golden hair gazes through her carriage window at the surrounding scenery. Iris, the princess of Kingdom Belzerg, wears an extremely serious expression. The conflict on the battlefront against the demonic forces has left the kingdom entirely immersed in financial hardship. The streets of the poorest areas of Belzerg Kingdom are thoroughly filled with individuals lamenting the shortage of provisions. Meanwhile, the wealthiest districts barely possess sufficient resources to exist modestly, and even the royal household cannot manage to spend considerably. Though the economy is merely a system for trading goods utilized to function in society, Belzerg Kingdom has forfeited over 80% of its harvests and animals during the previous decade. It stands on the edge of total ruin. Several weeks earlier, information arrived at Belzerg Kingdom, specifically the royal household, that one of two cities beyond the massive wall of Belzerg Kingdom had been utterly demolished. Alkenresha, a town that supplied substantial strategic materials for the conflict, was thoroughly surrounded by demons. Since that moment, the royal household has witnessed its funds further diminished. Therefore, Princess Iris needed to embark on a voyage with a convoy filled with vacant carriages to request gold, provisions, and medical supplies from Alderp Alexei Barnes. Although ordinary citizens know that Princess Iris frequently visits Governor Alderp, the reality is that Iris merely visits Alderp's fortress to study magic from Wiz. Iris possesses absolutely no cordial connection or similar relationship with Alderp. Currently, while various men, protectors wearing silver protection, guide the convoy, a subtle dread passes through Iris's spirit. For Iris, it seems as though she is stepping into the jaws of a monster. Her spirit shudders, her frame quivers. There appears to be a faint chill that permeates the whole carriage, and Iris cannot help but gulp nervously. Without thinking, Iris started to recall her elder sibling who had departed for battle. Time moves at a steady pace. Multiple days have elapsed. During this span of time, Wiz has been exceptionally intelligent, remarkably skilled at her duties. She recently disseminated the information that Axel would break away from Belzerg Kingdom to establish a fresh nation. Surprisingly for Wiz, nobody in Axel City resisted this concept. After all, during the recent days, the inhabitants of Axel City have witnessed directly the remarkable capabilities of both Kaiuya's team and of Wiz herself or Union. Following Milcar's influence on him, Kaiuya has been promoting a sentiment of patriotism not toward Belzerg Kingdom, but toward Axel City. With this, multiple wandering adventurers and ordinary citizens have undertaken a persistent effort for continuous practice. Provisions in Axel City are plentiful, and people's aspirations for tomorrow are remarkable. Confronted with this peaceful moment, Wiz, inside the governor's fortress of the town, is not calm whatsoever. She moves back and forth, her thoughts seem to be filled with something specific, and her spirit, though she lacks a physical heart, cannot cease racing. Union observes her mentor, while resting her back against the surface in a corner. Union comprehends perfectly why Wiz is in this condition, and that's because Milcar hasn't emerged from his chamber for the recent days. It doesn't matter if it was Aqua, Darkness, Eris, or Wiz who knocked on Milcar's entrance multiple times to check if Milcar was in that small chamber. There was no reply. They also did not venture to unlock the entrance, and since that moment, nothing has been discovered about Milcar. If that were everything, then Wiz wouldn't be so anxious. The genuine reason Wiz is so worried is because recently the Demon King has contacted her through thoughts. As a commander of the Demon King, Wiz's spirit has been bound and marked by the Demon King himself. With this binding, the Demon King can know precisely where Wiz is located, as well as communicate through thoughts with Wiz. The message from the Demon King that resonated in Wiz's thoughts was straightforward. You must return to headquarters. We require all the commanders to begin attacking Belzerg. Although she has chosen to stay as a subordinate of Milcar, Wiz's wishes in her spirit cannot be rejected. In her being, Wiz can remember that young girl with golden hair who calls her instructor, while embracing her tenderly. In some manner, she feels like a parent anxiously observing as one of her children is about to perish. Still, the genuine terror in Wiz's spirit is concerning the Demon King. The Demon King is a fervent enthusiast of young girls, so intensely that he has succeeded in creating a collection of young girls within the demonic territory. If that were everything, Wiz could remain composed, however. The Demon King is recognized for his excessively twisted preferences. Any woman who experiences his control will be thoroughly broken mentally and physically within several days. Now, as Wiz shifts from side to side in the location, Union in the distance can't help but observe her instructor with some sorrow. If only Lord Milcar was here. Union was about to continue talking when a protector dressed entirely in gleaming silver protection over his frame comes rushing into the chamber. Madam Wiz, the protector seems disturbed, his voice exhausted with a slight hoarseness, and his expression thoroughly flushed. The silver-protected man breathes a bit as he kneels to inhale some cool air and settle his fatigue. Wiz, interrupted and drawn from her contemplations, doesn't hesitate to look at the protector with a creased forehead, despite her figure being so attractive. At this instant, the protector who arrived couldn't help but swallow slightly. Madam Wiz, there is a fleet of carriages surrounding Axel City. They assert to be part of the royal household. Surprised by Wiz's expression, the protector hastens to speak. This, Union whispers with some uncertainty after hearing the protector's statements. Union turns to look at her instructor only to see her grinning slightly. Darn it, Union begins to exhale with some irritation at her instructor's response. Some envy and jealousy fill her spirit after witnessing how Wiz becomes thoroughly frantic because the royal household came to Axel. Exhaling with some naivety, Union's face displays a faint grin. After all, today is a notable day. She had arranged to compete against Megumin today. Grinning to herself because she can practice cultivation and Megumin can't, Union moistens her rosy lips with an eager expression, thinking about how she would need to remove Megumin's clothing. She imagined touching her smooth surface, but not before defeating Megumin using an enhanced explosion technique with chi, naturally. At the gateway of Axel City, multiple men in silver protection, protectors of Axel, and various noble soldiers of the royal household stare at each other. They glare as if they were eliminating each other with their stares. The commander of the noble soldiers and Iris's protector, Claire, at this instant directs her weapon at the commander of Axel's protectors, Dust. Dust, an individual who appears as a companion of Kazuma in the original story, at this instant has moderately lengthy hair. Although Dust has not obtained Milcar's blessing to be capable of practicing chi, he still hasn't been able to resist copying Kaiuya's manner. Dust has his hair colored white, a serious expression. The silver protection on his frame gleams in the daylight. Every section of it appears to be custom crafted, and the weapon resembling the Spanish rapier in Dust's grasp makes him look impressive. Following Aldrup's elimination, Milcar provided Wiz some blueprints for the craftsmen to execute. One of them included a design for protection based on agility and durability. It also featured a weapon similar to a Spanish rapier. It was thanks to these blueprints that fresh protection and weapons were created for Axel's militia. At this instant, Claire, one of the highest-ranking soldiers and acknowledged for her capability throughout Belzerg Kingdom, can't help but clench her teeth in anger. After all, what she just heard is sufficient for her to eliminate all the inhabitants of Axel. I believe I didn't hear properly. Perhaps my ears are deceiving me, Claire utters angrily as she observes Dust with lethal eyes. Dust, without reluctance, takes a stride forward and grins cheerfully, the two Spanish rapiers in each of his palms shining with a faint green shade. Haha, perhaps you should wash your ears, or maybe Belzerg Kingdom is so impoverished that you can't even obtain some water, Dust taunts as he looks at Claire's figure. Although Claire wears plate protection, her well-shaped frame still appears flawless, and the protection only amplifies her appeal. Claire can barely contain the increasing fury within her spirit. If she could eliminate Dust, she would have done it long ago. But the young princess behind her previously commanded her not to behave recklessly. It has been a period since the royal household was in this condition. We, the Axel Empire, cannot permit you, a declining human kingdom, to exploit our provisions and gold. Now depart, Dust shouts proudly. The other protectors behind him dressed similarly, but with not so gleaming protections nod their heads. Each of the individuals residing in Axel has a deeply rooted pride in their spirits for Axel. They are patriots comparable to Hirohito and a certain German artist. They adore their homeland and perish for it if required. After all, every time Kaiuya speaks marvels of Milcar and Chi, he unconsciously utilizes Chi. He makes his voice echo in the thoughts of every inhabitant of Axel. This unconscious application of Chi caused every individual within Axel City to be influenced by Chi, and their thoughts began to twist slightly. An unconscious mental conditioning on a massive scale. Iris at this instant breathes heavily, her crimson eyes observing dust with some suppressed fury. Previously, these kinds of individuals from a town distant from the kingdom could simply lower their heads in their presence, however. Why would these kinds of individuals living in a rural town behave like this? Iris can barely comprehend it, however. Her thoughts still function at tremendous velocity. Probably that overweight Alderp initiated a conflict for the independence of Axel City from Belzerg Kingdom. Considering this, Iris can't help but sense that something is incorrect. Why would Alderp do that? Is it because Belzerg Kingdom has deteriorated? No matter if Belzerg Kingdom has deteriorated, Claire, with her mighty swordsmanship and level, should be sufficient to eliminate most adventurers in Axel City. Or at least that's what Iris assumes. Axel Empire, this town is barely a few miles in diameter. Is this small town an empire? Please, don't make me chuckle. Come on, you're speaking to a lady, be a bit more logical. Claire grins at Dust. She can't help but shake her head. After all, Axel City was always a town inhabited solely by novice adventurers. Only the lowest among the lowest reside in Axel City. At this instant, unnoticed by anyone, a faint white illumination enters Dust's frame and the frame of every inhabitant of Axel City. A gentle breeze carries the fragrance of summer, with a slightly intoxicating aroma. However, nobody paid attention to this. Dust takes a stride forward with a faint grin after hearing Claire's mockeries. I didn't realize I was speaking to a lady. Are you certain you don't labor in a brothel at night? After all, your frame seems familiar with men. Dust sneers at Claire. There was a brief quietness. That's sufficient, Claire. Eliminate him, Iris whispers, her head thoroughly lowered, her expression concealed from sight. Nobody can tell what Princess Iris is experiencing at this instant. Claire looks at Dust for an instant before grinning. Familiar with men? Wow, I didn't realize peasants spoke so pompously. But it's not necessary for you anymore, just perish, Claire whispers in a grim tone. Her large weapon in grasp radiates with a golden illumination, and Claire's frame launches forward like a lion leaping on its target. All the protectors of Axel retreat several strides, unaccustomed to this, a gentle wind stirring their hair. Dust, who just moments earlier might have fled at the sight of an individual transforming into a beam of illumination, launching toward him, displays no alteration in his expression. Dust observes calmly as the world appears to shift in slow motion, Claire's form thoroughly visible to his eyes. Dust shifts his frame, his rapier in grasp moving at tremendous velocity. Unconsciously, energy inside Dust's frame erupts, making his frame shine with a faint white radiance. The green weapon begins to discharge an almost blinding illumination. In an instant, Claire, who had made a tremendous leap forward swinging her weapon, collides her weapon against one of Dust's rapiers. The noise is like the wind being sliced, a faint fracture is heard, Claire's face full of astonishment. What occurred? Claire senses a faint mighty pressure pushing her backward, her palms holding the large weapon trembling constantly, her frame weakening, her breathing shortening, and pain spreading all over her frame. Even with the rapier and the large weapon colliding without Claire or Dust applying pressure, Claire can sense the enormous gap between her strength and Dust's. At that instant, an audible fracture is heard. Claire's weapon breaks in two as she tumbles to her knees, unable to sustain her own mass on her trembling legs. There was a brief quietness, the royal soldiers observing Claire kneel with wide eyes. Even Iris couldn't help but open and close her mouth like a fish out of water. Nobody imagined that a simple protector from a town like Axel could humiliate the commander of the royal soldiers of Belzerg Kingdom this manner. The grins on the faces of the protectors and dust can't be concealed, each of them ready to assault and eliminate all the royal soldiers along with the princess. However, at that instant, an intense cold spreads throughout the location. The gravity appears to increase multiple times, and a mighty magical pressure applies force on Dust's frame, making Dust sense as if he was carrying multiple tons of mass on his shoulders. What on earth? Multiple protectors think in their thoughts, unable to comprehend. That's sufficient. Lady Iris is the princess of Belzerg Kingdom. She is a good companion and my pupil. A majestic voice is heard, making all the protectors and royal soldiers drop their weapons. Multiple large weapons and rapiers tumble to the surface with a dull thud, the weapons immediately penetrating the earth due to the mass they apply at that instant. "I can't shift," Dust whispers incredulously, cold perspiration running all over his frame, his legs trembling. Multiple protectors behind Dust have already kneeled due to the gravity. The royal soldiers and Claire have tumbled face down on the surface, unable to rise no matter how they attempt, as if gravity had increased hundreds of thousands of times for them. At this, a lovely woman with thoroughly inhuman hips and chest flies over the area near Axel's main gateway. With a grin, Wiz observes Iris, who doesn't appear influenced by this gravity. After all, Wiz has utilized one of her star techniques to prevent all protectors and soldiers from fighting, leaving Iris free of any technique. Slowly descending from a tremendous altitude, Wiz examines more closely the face of her young pupil, Iris, with azure eyes, pristine loose golden hair, a lovely face. A developing frame with a white garment. Everything about Iris is lovely and custom-crafted. Wiz nods happily at the sight of Iris. However, Iris looks around in bewilderment. Why does everyone appear to have lost the capability to combat? Iris was about to attempt lifting Claire's frame when she hears a familiar tone nearby. "You've matured, now you look more charming. I'm certain in the future you'll be more lovely than any woman who ever existed." The sweet, high-pitched tone calms Iris's slightly irritated and very anxious spirit. The sensation of calm, happiness, and astonishment fills her frame, a sudden grin appearing on her face. She can't help but turn around, only to see the lovely woman she had visited multiple occasions in the past. Iris's eyes open wide, her white teeth reflecting the daylight, and almost screaming with happiness, Iris runs to embrace Wiz. Naturally, Wiz doesn't refuse and opens her arms to receive this young girl, who has won her spirit long ago. This instant, with Wiz embracing Iris while the young princess weeps in Wiz's arms, lasts a few moments. In the end, Iris, like a young puppy, stays in Wiz's arms as if ready to slumber. Grinning, Wiz lifts the gravity technique she had cast on everyone present. Multiple muffled noises and held-back cries can be heard. The first to stand up is Dust, who had already confirmed through Iris's statements that the individual who had come was none other than Wiz, recognized as Milcar's right hand. He has no choice but to kneel on one knee without uttering anything. In an almost mechanical and well-coordinated sequence, the multiple protectors behind Dust follow his movement, kneeling, each one displaying their extensive experience and discipline. The royal soldiers look at Wiz with relief, especially Claire, who has known Wiz for quite some duration. In Wiz, Claire, who has barely risen using her weak limbs, can see a glimmer of hope for Belzerg Kingdom. The unconscious capability Dust utilized included a large amount of chi that Dust had just received. Thoughts on how to control the chi were implanted in Dust's thoughts and in all the inhabitants of Axel City, so for them, controlling the chi was like shifting a limb. At this instant, Claire walks with trembling strides, uninterested in looking at Dust, not caring about her previous humiliation. With fervor in her spirit, Claire bows and kneels in front of Wiz, her head touching the surface, her spirit filling with hope. "Please help Belzerg Kingdom," she pleads. There was a brief quietness. The royal soldiers, and even the protectors of Axel, observe Claire in astonishment. The proud Claire bowing to someone else. The royal protectors don't respond to this scene for an instant, stunned. However, in the quietness that followed Claire's respectful bow to Wiz, black clouds covered the town of Axel in an instant. As if they had appeared out of nowhere, These black clouds blocked the sun, transforming day into night in the blink of an eye. A cold wind, carrying the sensation of death, sweeps across every inch of Axel, filling the spirits of everyone in Axel City with despair. This sensation fills Wiz's spirit, though she has no heart, causing her eyes to widen significantly. It's Lord Milcar. Lord Milcar has awakened, Wiz shouts unconsciously due to the astonishment. Both the protectors and the soldiers breathe with some difficulty, due to the anxiety filling their frames. After hearing Wiz's statements, only the protectors display bright grins on their faces despite the sensation of despair brought by the light breeze that penetrates to the bone. Who is Milcar? Multiple protectors ask at the same moment. Claire trembles uncontrollably, the sensation of despair and the cold that appears to freeze her bones, making her spirit burn like a flame in winter. However, before Wiz can respond, a column of white illumination appears on one side of Axel City. The column of white illumination starts from the surface, where Milcar's fortress is, and reaches the sky. The sudden appearance of the column of illumination made everyone in Axel City, and everyone near Wiz sense the icy cold and the sensation of despair being replaced by warmth. A warmth that embraces their souls and frames. The moment has come to eliminate those inhuman creatures. The moment has come to eliminate those inhuman creatures. The moment has come to eliminate those inhuman creatures. A battle cry echoes in the spirits of every member of Axel City, filling their frames with warmth, making their thoughts crave combat, and strengthening their frames. Multiple white illuminations enter the frames of each member of Axel City, while the same cries resound in their thoughts. The moment has come to eliminate those inhuman creatures. In Axel City, multiple war cries can be heard, each one singing in unison with their heartbeats, each proclaiming that they would be the next to go to battle. They would eliminate the demons. For an instant, Axel City was filled with cries and proclamations of death to the demons, only for an instant before the column of illumination thoroughly disappeared. Wiz, who wasn't shouting, opens her eyes in astonishment. Something tells her something is incorrect. Her frame trembles, her thoughts function rapidly, attempting to comprehend what could occur next. The next instant, a man appears in front of Wiz. This man is none other than Milcar. Milcar's frame radiates faintly with a white shade, his two eyes replaced by small white flames, and his face reflecting serenity. Unconsciously, everyone present except Wiz and Iris in Wiz's arms kneels and bows their heads. Lord Milcar. Lord Milcar. At this instant, the protectors of Axel City shout with joy as they kneel, their spirits experiencing a sensation of ecstasy just by being in Milcar's presence. In his position, Milcar grins, simply examining Wiz. The royal soldiers, despite kneeling, cannot comprehend what is occurring. It's as if their frames are shifting on their own, as if it were natural to kneel before this Lord Milcar. Claire clenches her fists, grits her teeth, and with all her capability, slowly raises her head to see Milcar. What on earth is occurring? Claire can't comprehend, but the sensation that fills her spirit isn't warmth. It's as if she has a premonition that something terrible is going to occur. Claire wants to speak or shout, wants to stand between Wiz and Milcar to protect Iris, but it's impossible for her, barely able to shift her head. You've done a good task, Wiz. Iris is the princess of the royal household. Her soul must contain a good amount of divinity. Milcar grins as he speaks, extending one of his palms to touch Iris's head. However, Wiz quickly lifts her right palm to firmly grasp Milcar's hand, preventing Milcar from touching Iris. Wiz's movement was automatic. Wiz didn't think. Her palm shifted unconsciously, but if Wiz had to do it consciously, she would not only grab Milcar's palm forcefully, but also utilize her magic and chi to assault Milcar at this instant. Wiz breathes heavily, her eyes focused on Milcar, her thoughts racing and her spirit pounding. Wiz's frame trembles slightly, but her determination to protect Iris in her arms is stronger than all of this. Lord Milcar, you, Wiz stammers with a mixture of fear and bravery. What do you mean precisely by these actions? Wiz, are you planning to betray Axel City? That girl is part of the royal household. However, Milcar responds calmly, waiting for Wiz's answer. She is just. Before Wiz could finish speaking, Milcar shakes his head. Just a girl, haha, that's a bit hypocritical. She is a princess who has lived better than all the humans in this world. I'd say she's already had a good existence as a princess. She should attempt to sacrifice a bit more for her people, for the people who actually labor every day to eat. Don't you think? Milcar taunts for an instant before looking at Wiz without displaying any expression. A faint cold spreads throughout the location. Wiz can barely utilize a small portion of her mana to channel a freezing wind technique to assault Milcar. Wiz doesn't plan to utter another statement. She doesn't want to talk. If she hears one more statement from Milcar, Wiz fears her thoughts will be corrupted. Despite this, Milcar does nothing, only observing the slumbering Iris in Wiz's arms. Why can this princess slumber so peacefully, even when he is present? The sensation of astonishment in Milcar's spirit simply grows stronger as he observes young Iris in the trembling palms of Wiz. Despite Milcar not having done anything to harm Wiz, somehow her frame continues to tremble as if she's about to faint. Wiz's thoughts race at 1,000 miles per hour, attempting to find some way out, some method to save Iris's existence. Why? Wiz can't help but wonder within her thoughts. She can barely keep her head up in front of Milcar. Her spirit feels like it's breaking into 1,000 fragments, even though she doesn't have a heart. Nevertheless, Wiz, still trembling, appears determined to protect Iris. Behind Milcar, an individual has stood up, her frame swaying, legs appearing on the verge of breaking, and every shift accompanied by the noise of something shattering into 1,000 fragments. With bones almost breaking, boiling blood, and irresolute thoughts, Claire rises. Her weapon feels like it weighs 1,000 tons, and her frame appears crushed by an unprecedented gravity. Still, tears of determination on her face, Claire slowly lifts her weapon. The blade shimmers constantly, Claire's palms bleeding merely from attempting to raise it. It's as if her entire frame is collapsing. Blood escapes her 7 orifices, her eyes thoroughly crimson, fixed only on Milcar's back. Ha ha ha, is that so? Fine, fine, I never planned to eliminate her from the beginning. Milcar simply grins, his chi dissipating, returning everything around him to normal. Due to inertia and remaining capability, Claire's frame surges forward with tremendous momentum as her weapon swiftly rises, gleaming in the daylight. Claire's weapon collides with Milcar's frame, the sharp noise of metal hitting something hard echoing, and a second later, the weapon shatters into 1,000 brilliant fragments. Her thoughts collapse, her frame can't take any more, boiling blood scalds her veins, and her bones break into fragments. In just an instant, Claire's frame suffers severe damage, with only seconds separating her from death. Yet even so, a small white illumination enters Claire's frame, an illumination that begins to heal her despite her physical condition. Claire's frame tumbles to the surface the next instant. Her frame makes a noise like a giant piece of matter hitting the surface. Yet nobody, not even the royal soldiers, shift their heads to look at her, and then nothing occurs. Quietness begins to prevail. The various royal soldiers who were previously subdued less severely do not dare to raise their heads. After all, their spirits and thoughts cannot withstand the mental damage caused by Milcar utilizing his chi to suppress everyone present. It's as if a terror has been implanted in their spirits, a fresh terror that did not previously exist. Each of the royal soldiers simply has no desire to rush to aid Claire, each only concerned for their own existences. In contrast, the town protectors of Axel are in a thoroughly different condition. Each of their spirits beats with fierceness, joy escaping with every breath. Just looking at their half-closed eyes reveals the happiness that fills them. After all, Milcar has proven to be an existence far above such things. The protectors of Axel couldn't be happier or prouder. Still, none of them make a noise. Only Dust raises his head slightly to glance at Milcar's back for an instant before opening his mouth in astonishment. Why? Dust can't help but wonder in his thoughts. After all, the magnificent Milcar whom he holds in high regard is currently petting Wiz's head. Dust doesn't comprehend it. Just an instant ago, Wiz opposed Milcar. Shouldn't Milcar be eliminating her? Dust doesn't appear to have heard Milcar's previous statements correctly and simply gazes at Milcar with confused eyes as Milcar pets Wiz's head and talks about some fish sausage, or maybe chicken. Ha ha ha, it's been a period since I could do this. Sitting there like a darn chi cultivator is boring. Can you comprehend that, darn it? Wiz, I had no form of entertainment aside from my own thoughts. Milcar complains while grabbing Wiz's cheeks to play with them. HMPH, I am sorry, sir. Wiz stammers, her cheeks thoroughly flushed and her frame relaxed. She never thought things would end like this. Wiz was ready to combat to the death, but it turns out Milcar was just playing with her. Considering this, a sense of grievance spreads throughout Wiz's frame. After all, Milcar did the same to her utilizing a fish sausage. Remembering that scene, where she was willing to do whatever it took to fulfill her punishment, Wiz couldn't help but grit her teeth in some fury. Why are you biting my fingers? Milcar, who had inserted one of his thumbs into Wiz's mouth, asks with a creased forehead before simply grinning. By the way, what I mentioned about divinity wasn't a falsehood. My chi can become more mighty as it absorbs more divinity. However, if I had wanted divinity enough to bind a young girl, I would have eliminated Eris long ago. After all, she's, a goddess, right? Milcar's casual statements cause Wiz to slightly widen her eyes. A goddess? Wiz can't help but crease her forehead. Why, Wiz doesn't comprehend, but since those statements came from Milcar's mouth, they must be accurate. Is Eris that white-haired girl who appears quite friendly, a goddess? In fact, her name is similar to the name of the goddess Eris. Wiz thinks to herself before stopping biting Milcar's thumb. The individuals here have trained well. I've already spread a large portion of my chi to merge with each of the members of Axel City. For now, it's necessary to wait until these individuals level up in cultivation. Although, naturally, not much is expected from these individuals before assaulting the Demon King. We need to create a small strategy. Milcar stops playing with Wiz and begins to think to himself. Looking around, Milcar can think of multiple plans on how to utilize chi to invade demon territory. However, all these plans require Milcar to have an army of chi cultivators ready to perish at any instant. Considering this, Milcar simply shakes his head. Time is something he cannot modify, at least not for the instant. Although there is the divine plane where all the gods and goddesses reside, Milcar does not want to think about it for the instant. Who knows what mighty existences there are in the divine plane? Still, if Aqua and Eris help me, it should be sufficient for me to reach a level where I can enter the divine plane and start assaulting those gods. Milcar thinks before simply touching his chin. HMPH, Sir Milcar, what will occur to Iris? Suddenly, Wiz beside Milcar asks with a timid tone of voice. After all, as Iris's mentor, Wiz really can't let this young princess perish. She's grown too attached to her. Iris? Milcar asks with some curiosity before seeing the girl in Wiz's arms. Precisely, Wiz responds with a bit more confidence, hearing that Milcar's statements suggest he's not interested in eliminating the princess. Wiz grins slightly with relief before looking at Milcar with somewhat hopeful eyes. If Mr. Milcar comprehends, Miss Iris only came to Axel to ask for provisions and resources. The conflict against the demon forces on the front lines is about to end. Belzerg Kingdom could be invaded by demons in just a couple of days. Wiz speaks in a severe tone. Is that so? Hee hee. We will probably have to help Belzerg Kingdom if we want them to serve as a barrier, so that Axel City can develop properly over the next few months. We are still not ready to face the demon forces, Milcar says with a shrug. A few hours later, at a large table, the original team of Milcar is joined by 2 additional members, Wiz and Union. It has been some duration since Milcar has seen his team members, and some of them appear quite anxious for some reason. Aqua, Eris, and Darkness, sitting together in one section of the table, eat calmly. From time to time, they look at Milcar, then purse their lips and grin slightly. Although they don't display it, they appear to be anxious about something. On the other hand, Union and Megumin are sitting together, with Union unusually close to Megumin. Union cuts and then pierces a piece of meat with her cutlery, bringing her fork to Megumin's mouth as if feeding a child. Blushing from this, Megumin slightly opens her mouth to eat the piece of fried meat in front of everyone. After all, Union had won in an explosion technique contest, defeating Megumin thanks to the chi she possesses. Now, considering this, Megumin's face displays not only embarrassment, but also distress. Why hadn't Milcar given her such remarkable strength before giving it to Union? Megumin grits her teeth with some fury considering this. After all, she had been anxious and a bit worried about Milcar these days, and only now does she learn that Milcar gave chi to Union before her. It was because of this time gap that Megumin couldn't utilize chi in her explosion technique competition against Union. Megumin lightly hits the table with some fury and looks at Milcar with bright eyes. On the other hand, Kazuma is eating the fried meat with a calm and cold expression. A few hours ago, Kazuma received the capability to cultivate chi, and as a good otaku who has read numerous Chinese novels, now, Kazuma is muttering phrases like courting death or similar statements. Grinning and laughing quietly, Kazuma tries to eat quickly to return to his chamber and start cultivating in seclusion. On the other hand, in a slightly more secluded spot, Iris, who has just awakened, Wiz, and a healed Claire are eating together. They appear to be talking quietly among themselves, sometimes grinning, and occasionally Iris looks at Milcar with curiosity. After all, both Iris and Claire are aware that Alderp Alexei Barnes was eliminated by Milcar, and now Milcar governs Axel City. For Iris, it was a discovery, the fresh energy called chi, how mighty her mentor became, and the various adventurers and inhabitants of Axel who recently received this chi in their frames. It can be said that an individual with chi and one without chi are two thoroughly different things. At a glance, one can tell and differentiate these individuals. An individual without chi, even if they have received the best nutrition and are in their prime youth, cannot compare to the radiance and aura that an individual with chi exudes. An hour ago, when she awakened in her chamber, Iris quickly started a conversation with Wiz, who was almost compulsively observing her while sitting in a chair beside Iris's bed. During this process, she also learned that Milcar had fought against Duke, one of the Demon King's commanders, and apparently eliminated him without much effort. Another Demon King commander, Sirstina, was also eliminated without much effort by Milcar. After Wiz told Iris everything about Milcar, now, this young princess didn't know how to respond. Although Milcar had achieved remarkable things and eliminated multiple Demon King commanders, Iris and Claire also learned that Milcar had declared Axel Village's independence. Although Claire was outraged and about to grab her weapon to combat Milcar, she still held back due to everything she heard. No doubt Milcar's strength is thoroughly genuine. Now, at this instant, Iris occasionally glances at Milcar while eating some fried meat, her thoughts wandering through multiple methods to ask Milcar to help Belzerg Kingdom, to not declare Axel Village's independence. However, no matter how she thinks about it, that appears impossible. Even so, Iris still has an unwavering determination that fills her entire spirit. Her frame appears slightly agitated, and her thoughts start functioning. Iris, with bright eyes, looks at Milcar with some embarrassment before making a decision deep in her spirit. However, before Iris can do anything, Claire has already stepped forward. She walked to where Milcar's chair was and knelt on one knee with her head down, a loud noise echoing through the location as Claire made this shift. "Sir," Claire proclaims with some fervor in her tone, "please help Belzerg Kingdom by sending supplies for the conflict and your warriors who can cultivate chi." The request was clear and precise, almost carrying a tone of urgency. Though it was a heartfelt plea, Claire still couldn't help but tremble slightly. Her hair covers her face due to her bowing, and her spirit beats fiercely. Facing a man who can defeat her without even shifting a finger, Claire can't contain her terror, and above all, her previous shouts could be taken as an offense by Milcar. How could she not be nervous? Quickly, everyone at the table turned their heads to look at the kneeling Claire, each with different expressions and thoughts. "HMPH, hee, naturally, I will send supplies to the conflict, but I will not send my soldiers to combat on the front lines." Milcar grins, puts down the cutlery in his palms on the table. He pats Claire's head lightly, as if patting a puppy's head. No, this can't be occurring. This can't be occurring. Is Milcar looking for another woman? Aqua thinks in her thoughts before biting her lips and looking at Claire with hatred in her eyes. Claire, with short hair and a blue streak, wears custom-crafted protection that highlights her hourglass figure. This, along with her flawless and lovely face, makes even Aqua sense that this woman is trying to seduce Milcar. A similar thought crosses the thoughts of Eris and Darkness at this instant. However, unlike Eris or Aqua, Darkness breathes heavily and observes Milcar pat Claire's head with bright eyes. Is this the classic scene of a master treating his servant like a pet? This thought passes through Darkness's thoughts, and an image forms in her head. An image of herself wearing accessories like ears and a tail while she's modestly dressed, asking Milcar to pet her like a puppy. The scene makes Darkness feel flustered in just an instant. Should I? Yes, I should ask Milcar to play a bit tonight. Darkness barely contains her excitement while observing Milcar pat Claire's head with deep, jealous eyes. Kazuma, on the other hand, examines this with calm eyes, as if such mundane desires no longer influence him. Kazuma simply observes the scene with a puffed-out chest. On the other side, Wiz and Iris observe the scene with nervous grins. Iris is a bit irritated that Claire took the initiative and got ahead of her, while Wiz is a bit curious. Isn't this the same scene she witnessed before? Wiz narrows her eyes. After all, when Milcar patted her head multiple hours ago, she sensed a faint sensation of pleasure that began to grow over time. This sensation almost made her let out a faint reaction. If Milcar hadn't stopped patting her head within seconds, she would have displayed an embarrassing side. Do Milcar's palms have something special? Wiz can't help but think this. Perhaps Milcar can utilize chi in different methods, and this is one of them. At this instant, Wiz feels curious about Milcar's palms. On the other hand, Claire, who was confused and somewhat annoyed by Milcar patting her head, quickly realized that these pats made her frame respond peculiarly. Her spirit began to beat faster gradually, her frame heated up, and soon a sensation of pleasure came with each pat on her head. It's as if they stimulated a sensitive portion of her. Her head now feels like it has faint sensations of sweetness and tingling, mixed with sensations of pleasure with each touch of Milcar's palm. Unconsciously, Claire stops thinking and pushes her head against Milcar's palm, as if asking for more pets.